All right, thank you very much for coming to my talk. I've been thinking a lot about what to talk about. This talk has actually been evolving over the course of the weekend as I talk with other people and hear what other people are having to say. And I think that I've been in an interesting position where I've been able to see different facets of this language learning community, and that's a thing that I'll talk about in this talk. So, but first, there are flashcards. If you have a pen or a pencil or some type of writing implement, if you could get that out. If you don't, you can email me. My email's on the bottom of this slide here. I'm really interested in a couple of questions, and if you could take the time to answer them, I think it'll be interesting. So the first one is, what's a language that you are learning or interested in learning? I know a lot of you probably have many languages. You can, maybe for the sake of focusing, choose one. The second one is, I'm curious about what was your inspiration or your kind of your experience, whether it was a thing or a person. I'll explain in just a little bit why I'm asking about this. Number three, I'm curious about if you have kind of like a long-term goal or a vision for why you want to learn that language, or what it is that inspires you about this language. And I'm also interested in if there's anything that you feel like is kind of getting in your way or slowing you down right now. Maybe something you haven't really gotten around to, or something that seems to be putting some kind of a friction in your language learning efforts. And then lastly, please add your name and email contact information, because I'd really like to talk with you about these kinds of things. So the reason that I'm asking this, and I'll tell you a little bit about some of my own story as you're writing, is because I think I have a new hobby. My new hobby is collecting the reasons that people started learning languages. And well, that is my new hobby. And I think it's fascinating, because every now and then I meet people and I learn about why they're learning the language they're learning, and a lot of times it's these like really almost insignificant experiences that sort of pivot them in a whole new direction in their lives, and I find that really inspiring. I find it really interesting to learn about the things that basically change people's lives. For example, there's a girl I met in Shanghai who she's on her way to studying at a university in Sweden this fall, and it all started because she found a Swedish pop song that she liked, and then she started taking lessons, and I've been hearing more and more of these kinds of things from different kinds of people, and I think it's fascinating. I'd really like to understand more what it is that inspires people to start learning. So for my own story, my inspiration was a random newspaper article that I read while I was looking for the Sunday comics, and I accidentally read an article that was talking about Chinese in China. Fast forward past high school, past college, and now I'm moving to China so that I can learn more about Chinese culture, actually experience being in the country. And that took me on a crazy trip to eventually Shanghai, where I started working at italki. So super quick disclaimer, I work at italki. Italki is one of the sponsors of this event, and we're really excited about all this stuff happening in the language community. Specifically, the talk that I'm giving today is sort of from my own observations. These are my own opinions and what I think I see as the language learning community continues, and some of the amazing opportunities that I think are there for teachers, students, and also content creators, basically everybody at this kind of event. So when I first started working at italki, I've always been focused on education, and I started working with italki articles. That was one of the first projects that I had. So I've had that experience with the content creation side and the producing side. Later on, I began working more closely with the teachers on the website, and now I manage a team that provides services for the online teachers on italki. If anybody here is not already familiar with italki, basically we're a platform where you can find an online teacher for hopefully any language that you want. We have more than 100 languages, so if you want to learn a language and we don't have a teacher for it, I'd really like to help you find one. And then most recently, and the thing that we're kind of excited about now, is we've been inspired by the Polyglot Conference, the Gathering, and LangFest too, to try to bring some of this language learning community to Asia. So last year we started what we call LanguageCon, and it's in Shanghai, China. We're having the second one this year. If for some reason you're in China next month, please come visit us. And actually, LanguageCon is one of the inspirations for the talk that I want to give today, because I speak at different events in Shanghai, and I usually end up talking about something to do with language education or language learning. And I got a question at last year's LanguageCon that became really interesting to me, not because of the question itself, but because I realized that I get this question every time I speak about languages. And that question was a girl in the room who raised her hand and said, "I was never good at languages in school. What hope is there for me? How can I learn a language?" Actually, let me put this in presenter view here. It'll be a little bit more interesting. So no matter what I talk about, I can talk about different facets of language learning. There's always somebody in the audience that asks me, how can I do it? How do I learn a language? When I'm working in italki customer support, people are writing in like, "I forgot my password," and all kinds of things like that. And then there's also questions like, how do I learn? I want to learn, insert language here, English, Spanish, or how can I learn a language? And I know that, especially at this kind of event with this kind of audience, a lot of you, I'm sure, are figuring this out and have your own answers to this question. And so what I wanted to do today is try to take some time to further inspire you, maybe give you some other ideas, and then step back a little bit and look at the bigger question of not just what is it that I can do to learn a language, not just how do I learn the language, but maybe a little bit also of why, and a little bit also of what it means for the learning community now that we have so many different resources available to individual people, and not only that we can get through schools or through companies or through products. All right, so I'll continue with that. So our main question here is, okay, how can I do it? How can I learn a language? And I want to try to remind us that we have these really amazing learning devices already. They're in our heads. It's called your brain. So, okay, let me back up a little bit again. A lot of times when I get these kind of questions about people wondering what they can do to learn a language, they're thinking about their classes in school. The girl who asked this question at LanguageCon was specifically saying, "I was never good at language in school," and I hear that from so many other people in this community. It's so discouraging to them when they think back on their lessons and they remember like, "Oh, I didn't like that class," or "I didn't do very well in that class." And they start making this mistake of thinking that just because I didn't do well in school, and in school I was studying languages, so therefore I'm not good at languages. Like, no, like, don't make that mistake, right? Like just because you didn't do that well in your class, and maybe you were great, right? Like I'll get to that part later on. There's a danger, I think, in being too good at school, but it's very discouraging for people, and they make this mistake of thinking that they're bad at languages. And if that's you or if that's your friends, a thing that I want to try to encourage you with is, if you didn't do very well in school, maybe it's because your brain is trying to protect you, right? Like let's say, for example, that your brain really appreciates interesting things, relevant things, practical things, things that are exciting, things that help you connect with people, things that help you achieve things in the real world. And your brain somehow knows that when you're trapped inside the walls of a classroom and you're looking at a textbook and you're preparing for a standardized test, that this is none of those things. These things are not relevant. They're not real in a way. It's just sort of this fake world that we make inside of a classroom, and your brain is probably trying to protect you from that. So I want to make the suggestion that if you can find interesting things, if you can find relevant things, things that connect you with other people, I bet your brain will really like those things, and you'll probably be very good at learning those things. So your brain is your secret superhero. It's trying to protect you, and we need to figure out how to help it unleash its powers. And one of those things that I think we can do is, I've noticed, I'm from America, the United States, and I've noticed that my country has a tendency to declare war on abstract concepts. In keeping with this tradition, I would like to declare war on should. I think this is a very dangerous abstract concept, and it's one that really bothers me a lot, actually. I am one of the people for whom school worked pretty well. I was pretty good in school. I got good grades. I did the right things, and as a result, I'm still not that great at Chinese. Okay, what's the connection there? I've noticed that I have a lot of friends who became extremely fluent at a language because they watch a lot of movies or TV series. They really absorb a lot of material. And I never really got used to watching TV. I went home and I did my homework and I did the things that I should, and I didn't use the computer too much and I didn't watch TV too much. And as a result, I find myself needing to train myself to watch movies and watch TV series and these things that seem to have such great results for other people. And part of that, I think, is because I focus a lot on the things I think I should do to learn a language as opposed to the things that really help me learn a language. A story I have there is I spent quite a lot of time on Anki, which is an amazing tool. Pleco and Anki are great combinations if you're learning a language, especially if you're learning Chinese, but I wasn't using it right. I did the thing where I thought, okay, I should use flashcards, I should spend time on flashcards, here's a deck of flashcards, I should study it on my way to school every day, and I did that. And then one day, several months later, I woke up, and I don't mean from being asleep, I mean I was already awake and I was standing on the bus and I was looking at my flashcards, and it just occurred to me that I'd been doing this every single bus ride for months, and I was still saying that I didn't feel familiar with the cards, like, oh, nope, that one's not learned yet. It's like, what am I doing? These words aren't even really words that I use in daily conversation. It's not really related to anything that I'm doing. I'm putting in the time, I'm flipping through the flashcards, I'm not learning them. Why? What's wrong with that? And I think it's because I was doing a thing I thought I should be doing, as opposed to a thing that was really connecting me with the language and really connecting me with the things that I ultimately wanted to be doing in that language. Okay, so I want to transform this question a little bit from, okay, how can I learn a language? I think a lot of people, when they're asking this, they're expecting someone to give them a method, or they're expecting someone to say, okay, well, step one is you find someone who can open up your brain, and then step two is you locate the language contents and you put it inside, and then step three is you close your brain and now you know the language, or they're trying to find some kind of, okay, if I check off these boxes, or if I do the same thing that this person did, and it's not, I think it's the great challenge and the great opportunity of language learning that there's not a set method for that. There's a method perhaps that works for someone else, but you can't be sure if that method is also going to work for you. That might sound very scary and uncertain, but then the opportunity there is to find a way that really does work for you. Like, this is your opportunity to figure out what engages you, what connects you to that language, what kinds of learning feel really rewarding for you, and that's a knowledge that only you can have, and that's a way that you can take ownership of your own learning and your own understanding of what's important to you. So I want to transform the question from how can I learn a language to what do you want to do? And I think that will really take away a lot of the sense of obligations or the sense of the shoulds. So if you look at your cards, what's your vision? What is the thing that you want to do with that language? And use that as your motivation. For example, I organize an EdTech meetup in Shanghai. I want to be able to talk about education with the Chinese community. So what'll I do? Well, it's not all fun and games. If you really want to achieve something, there is going to be some level of work and dedication, commitment to that. But what can I commit myself to that will feel rewarding and will help me advance towards that goal? In my situation, what I want to do is find articles about education in Chinese on the internet, and then study those or go over those with a teacher or a partner who will talk about them with me in Chinese. Anybody want to share anything on your card or any ideas? So what I'd like to do here is try to move what you might have written down for your vision of what you'd like to do with the language, or your goal of what you'd like to achieve, to what's maybe a next actionable, a concrete thing that you can do. The vision can sometimes be very abstract, but if you have a concrete thing is the next step. Yes?
Okay, so I've been learning, I took 7 years of French in school. Mm-hmm. And then I So I wasn't good at it before, so I will learning it again. And I started in January. It's been 8 months now, and I still feel like I'm at an A1, maybe A2 level. And for several reasons, I find it's a difficult language. It is more difficult for me than Spanish. And then coming here, I realized that the way I've been studying was, what should I do? You know, maybe I needed to learn the grammar first.
Yeah.
You know, learn the pronunciation first, and I was too afraid to like speak and read literature, and I couldn't find it as easily as I could with Spanish materials where I live. So like now I know that I have to go back and change the way I'm studying for it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and like specifically. I think finding good content, good things to read or listen to is a big challenge for me too. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to get content in? Like, I don't know, do you like songs or articles about something?
I usually love to learn through music, but because pronunciation is so difficult for me to understand, like sometimes that's why I was so hesitant to start off with it. Like, I will never know what this word is or how it's spelled, you know. And then I could kind of move on to it.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, I'm gonna sidetrack myself a little bit, but that brings up another interesting concept of even if you have the goal of like, okay, you know, maybe if we frame this as like, I want to learn these songs. So what I think I need to do is study the pronunciation first. I mean, that might be a thing that you decide is important to you, but I think and I forgot to mention this before, but I think it's also really important to sort of be a little generous with yourself and give yourself the ability to go back and decide, do I want to keep doing that or not? Like maybe you decide that in the beginning, so you could start with pronunciation, but then you can check in with yourself and be like, okay, is this helping me? Do I feel like this is helping me with this to learn these songs, or is something missing still? Or maybe I can learn the songs in a more direct way. If it's any encouragement to you, when I started learning Russian, I had been listening to Hakuna Matata in Russian for about a month straight before I started my lessons. There's a long story behind that. So some of us in the office decided to take what we called the Hakuna Matata challenge to learn it in different languages. It's really fun when everybody meets up on the chorus. Sorry? Oh my gosh! Ask me that again at the end of my talk. I need to do a lot of remembering and switching. But the punchline though is that so I'd been listening to this song and I didn't really know what it meant. I didn't understand it, but I'd been trying really hard to listen and follow along with the how it sounded just as music. And when I started my Russian lessons with teachers on italki, they all told me that my Russian sounded like I'd been studying for a couple of years already. I didn't know how to say anything. Right? So they'd ask me something, or I'd say some part of the song, and they'd reply in Russian, and I'd be like, but I think it really did help my pronunciation and help sort of train my ear of what Russian phonology sounded like. Okay. Yeah, you might want to choose, I guess, what you want your sounds, how you want to train your brain. All right, so I've got a couple more slides to get through here, but then I do want to bring it back to a discussion, because I think this is the kind of stuff that our community is sort of all learning together. That is one thing I think is really inspiring about these events and this community, is all the work that individual people are doing. I'll talk about this more later on too, but when we publish this, or when we share it, or when we talk about it, we're helping everybody learn together, and we're all getting better at learning. So yes, I'd like to suggest motivation instead of like what you think you should be doing or what other people tell you should be doing, to revisit what it is that you really want to do. What's the next thing that makes you feel excited about this language? What do you want to do in that language? And then committing yourself to that. And that way, hopefully, even when it's a challenge, even when it's work, it won't quite feel like the same kind of work, because you'll remember why you're doing it. You'll remember, you'll be able to see some of the progress that you want to make in this language. And this way too, you'll really be able to engage not just with the materials, but with yourself. You can become a much more active learner and really engage with what you're trying to do. You know, someday I'll probably have another talk about psychology of engagement and why I think that's one of the most effective ways of learning. But for right now, this is really important, not just for you and your own learning, but especially if you're learning with other people. Being able to activate yourself towards what you're learning about will teach you not only the subject that you're learning, but it will teach you more also about your own motivations and what really inspires you. And that's something that nobody can really tell you. Especially if you're working with a teacher. I've been getting questions a lot at this conference where people are asking me about, how do I find a teacher? What do I tell my teacher? Your teachers really, really want to help you. And this is another thing that I think is extremely different from normal classroom education or the way that people are kind of trained to learn in schools. Some of my friends learning on italki, they're starting to work with their italki teachers, and they're going to their lessons, and they're feeling that same sense of like kind of fear and obligation that you feel about school, right? Like maybe it's their second lesson with the teacher, and they're thinking to myself, I didn't do any of the homework. Or I kind of forgot what we talked about last time, and they're already like kind of making themselves nervous about the class. It's like, what do you think your teacher's gonna do? You think they're gonna like fail you from your, oh, you're not in a class. Okay, well maybe you're not gonna pass the test, or oh, there is no test, or okay, maybe they're gonna drop you from the class. Oh, they can't do that because you're here because you wanna be here, right? Like your teachers wanna help you. And from my side too, I work with a lot of the teachers on italki, and they get nervous about their classes too, right? Like your teachers also get nervous about their classes because you want to be a good learner, they want to be a good teacher. I hope that everybody's had that teacher in their lives somewhere that just really connected with them and really made the material or made something come alive for them in a way that no other teacher did. And that's one thing I think is really exciting about learning with a teacher, an individual tutor, is that you don't have that school in the way. You can bring what you want to learn, and that teacher is free to help you with what you want to learn. They're not being required to teach you for some tests that you have to pass, or because the school has some curriculum or there's some program that the whole class of 40 students all has to get through together. It's just you and this person that wants to help you, and that is the thing that they want more than anything in the world, is to help their students get from point A to B. So tell them what the A is and tell them what the B is. Tell them what your level and your goals are now. Tell them what you've been working on before, maybe what kind of things you've tried before. You don't have to have it all figured out. It's not homework, it's not a test, it's a collaboration. So when you can tell your teacher what you've already tried, maybe some things you liked or didn't like, you don't need to have the answers. Your teacher's probably seen a lot of other students before struggling with the same things, and they can recommend things for you. And the more that you can tell your teacher about how you like to learn or what kind of content you want to learn, the better they'll be able to help you maybe provide some of those things or help you work through those things. They can give you a lot of advice, and it makes them feel better about their classes too, because then they're sure that they're actually doing something that helps you. All right, so just some examples, things that I've seen people doing very innovative. I think we all know about movies. YouTube is a way of absorbing content that's interesting and learning. I've seen some teachers doing really interesting things with Google Maps. For example, people trying to travel, or the teachers just trying to introduce, like, okay, more information about me. You're like, I went on Google Maps and I can find, like, here's where we are right now, right? Like, we're here. You could have a lesson about this. You could talk about where the building is. You could talk about directions to it. You can look at the building and say, like, oh, this morning I had breakfast at Tim Hortons, and then I went inside this building. You know, there's so much to talk about here. And some more examples. If you came to any of the italki teacher lessons today or yesterday, a lot of the teachers use Google Documents as a collaborative way of sharing information with their students. And it's not only for review, you can both use it during the lesson. Other things that teachers like to use, I've seen teachers using Trello. It's a task management system. A lot of companies use it, but individual people can use it too. It's a free online tool. You can save informations in cards. You can put pictures on them. It's very interactive. Images. I've seen people get very creative with images. For example, one of my Russian teachers, we don't speak English, and my Russian's not very good. But it doesn't matter, because she and I really want to communicate, so we find a way. And that way is usually going to Google image search and typing in words and then finding a picture that helps and sharing that and doing some combination of sharing pictures back and forth or sharing Google Translate things back and forth until we figure out what that word is or how to express that thing, which I love because it means I can keep the lessons in Russian. My Russian's not very good yet. I feel like a little kid because the things that I can think about in Russian are not very many, but it makes it much easier to keep expressing things in the language that way. Okay, and then for review materials, a lot of teachers also, and students too, if you can save the information, you can export that to tools like Anki, or some teachers will make little Quizlet things for people to review later on. And this spreadsheet here is something that I wanted to share because I think it's such a great example of innovation. This is what happens when you start off with what it is that I want to do and how can I achieve that, rather than figuring out what it is that you should be doing and trying to follow somebody else's path. So Amy is one of the Chinese teachers on italki, and she and one of her students, I think his name was Jason, they came up with this spreadsheet. And she actually has an italki article and a YouTube about how to do it. So during their lesson, they can use a spreadsheet. She can type in Chinese characters here, and they've set up the spreadsheet so that it automatically produces the pinyin and the translation like live. You don't have to write it down first and then go look it up and then copy it to something else. And in this way, they can she can keep typing in Chinese, and her students can read the pinyin and know what it means immediately. All right, so I'm just gonna try to keep moving through our slides here, but this kind of stuff, there's resources out there that we, 5, 10 years ago, completely did not exist at all. And I think that in many different facets, not just from teaching or content creation, but also many different areas of business, even some social movements are moving away from relying on a big corporate structure or a big institution or a big school. It used to be that you needed these kind of big structures to put together enough money and resources and talent into one place so that you could produce content or you could produce a curriculum. But we don't need these things anymore because now individual people can get on the internet. Individual learners can sift through way too much information in some cases about different ways of learning. Individual teachers don't have to rely on other people's curricula. They can move through the internet in the same way and find things that are relevant to their students. And content producers, like many of the bloggers and vloggers and people here at this conference, they don't need to get their material checked by some company first. They can try their own language learning methods, make their own video, and share that so that all of us can see it too. And I think that there's a sort of move towards DIY, I'm gonna call it, DIY learning, where you can just learn the things that you wanna learn in the ways that you wanna learn and get the results that hopefully you want to get. And it's a way to get really inventive with these things. So I'd encourage you to go back to whatever you put on your card of what language you're learning, what vision you have for learning it, maybe even the problem, if you filled in the section of like what kind of challenge or problem you're facing, and see if you can find something out there to solve your own problem or find some other people that have a similar problem, because there might be a way that you can, there might not be a product or a service for it already, but there might be things that you can patch together and sort of create your own solution from that. I've got a couple of examples here too, and I want to really encourage people, when you find something that works, even if that thing is not going to work for someone else, even if that thing only works for you, share it, still share it, because it's an example of something new that someone tried, and it might inspire someone else. Maybe they can't take exactly the same way that you learned, but hopefully they'll use it as an inspiration to find their own way and find the things that are really rewarding for them. I grabbed a couple of examples here of people that I don't really hear about within this community. I mean, like within this language learning community, we've already got some of the originals, Kaufman, Benny, Ali, Richards, like these people that have been publishing on the internet their own learning experiments for a long time now, really inspired the rest of this community to get started. But it's also spreading beyond this community, and that's something that I find really inspiring. Other people in like other parts of the internet or other, not just on the internet but in real life too. They're taking the kind of things that this community is discovering and being able to apply them to their own things. So there's this other, this is Gavin from Small Advantages. He has stuff about learning Portuguese. We discovered, well, we didn't really discover, but one day she just sent us a message. Celine, she sent us this message of learning 40 languages on italki. Like, I had no idea, right? And then we see her YouTube video of her speaking 40 different languages. She just kind of moves from one to the other one. And then this one here, Ari in Beijing, it has a special place in my heart because I was part of some user interviews at italki a couple of years ago, and we had a group of students from America that we were interviewing about, why are you learning? How do you learn online? What kind of methods do you like? The very first one was this guy, Ari, and we were talking with him about how he was trying to learn Chinese from One Piece comics on the metro on the way to and from work. A couple of years later, I discovered that he started his own YouTube channel about learning Chinese, and now he's sharing with other people his own progress of learning Chinese. It's really very impressive. It's just kind of fun. It's sort of, I feel like I discovered him, even though I didn't really do anything to help him at all. All right, so then one last thing that I want to show you guys before I try to ask you more about what you wrote on your cards or open up to questions, because this is an amazing topic to me, is this example of something that really inspires me and something that I think is a great representation of what people can come together and do when we're not already trying to replicate some system that we already have, when we're really trying to solve a new problem in new ways. So this is an outreach program that I've been working on for a long time. It's come together over a long period of time with a lot of different people involved. Particularly, there's this group, Small Projects Istanbul. They are an NGO in Istanbul that helps refugees, mostly from Syria and from some other countries too. And they were working together with this group, Conversations Unbound, that started at Vassar College. And they've, what we've done is we're using the italki platform as a way for teachers from small projects to teach Vassar College students and expanding this to other universities and colleges as well. If any of you were here at the Arabic lesson, that teacher is also involved in this program. And I think it's, I'm going to show you a video. I will tell you what it's about, but it's the kind of thing that I think the world really needs more of, because to me, this is what happens when you can bring people together across languages and across cultures. What did my computer just do? As soon as I find your video again. That's not it. There we go. Okay. Does that work?
The number of refugees worldwide has reached historic levels as tens of millions of people seek asylum from conflicts in their home countries. Even for those able to reach countries willing to take them in, rebuilding their lives and careers in unfamiliar societies often proves challenging. For one group of refugees living in Istanbul, teaching online Arabic lessons to students across the world has offered a way to overcome these obstacles and establish new hope. As well as earning income, they have been able to share their experiences with people from different cultures and backgrounds, cultivating meaningful relationships with students.
My name is Rahaf and I'm from Latakia, Syria. Previously, I had a normal but busy life.
My name is Abdullah and I'm a Syrian guy from Homs, the capital of funny jokes.
Hello, my name is Amr. I'm an Arabic teacher on italki. I'm from Egypt.
Hi, I'm Hussam. I'm from Syria, Al-Hasaka, and I'm a teacher on italki now.
3 years ago, I came to Turkey, to Istanbul. Many challenges came in one time. Leaving a country is not, or leaving your home. This is one, it's like fish out of the group.
I mean, yeah, the challenge that my career is almost dead. This is the only challenge now. Online teaching, yeah, it solves this problem, of course, because you can just be wherever and get online and start your class.
What italki offered me is like new students I have never met from another continent, way far from me. They want to like learn my language. I feel like this is like, I feel sometimes emotional.
Italki, Bessa College and NGO Small Projects Istanbul are working together on this project.
You know, it's important for people to kind of see and get to know someone who's experiencing a difficult time or who has had a difficult past, and to just remember people are people are people. We need to remember that you know, we have a shared humanity, and I think that gets lost a lot in the media or in the news.
I'm teaching Arabic for first-year students of Arabic in America. We both enjoy teaching and learning online. It's an amazing experience for me as a teacher. I find it so helpful for me, also for the students.
Going into it, people might like have these assumptions that you're supposed to like learn something about refugees or like understand something new, but I think it's like most valuable to realize that like you're not really learning anything new other than that like this is like just another person just like you.
My tutor Mohammed was like so nice and so willing to work with my level of speaking and comprehension.
At the beginning, teaching online was a new experience for me, and it had a lot of challenges, but now I'm used to it. And honestly, I'm enjoying teaching Arabic on italki.
I care now. I care more. I care more about the language. I care more about my students. Teaching Arabic is something valuable for me. Maybe give me hope, or I feel gain hope. It's reward for me.
All right, and this all really happened because of the students at Vassar College that saw the difference between the lessons, the Arabic lessons that they were being taught in school and the reality of what many people were facing in the world, and wanted to be able to bridge that gap, wanted their education to really mean something and to be able to really understand and help other people. And I'm really proud of all the people that were involved in this project. I think this is a really great example of the kind of innovation that can happen when people find ways of combining different resources so that they can understand each other better. And I want that to be the encouragement for you guys too, is, this is just one particular situation, but I think all of us have problems that we want to solve, all of us have goals that we want to reach, all of us have really very inspiring reasons, I think, for the language that we want to learn and what we want to do with that. And I want to encourage us that we are making that happen now. The kinds of things that we talk about at these sort of events, the kinds of people you meet, the new things that we're doing, we are pushing the boundaries of what's possible with education, with language learning, with connecting across languages and cultures. And that's something that I hope that all of us keep discovering on our own, keep sharing with others, and keep pushing to see what's possible. Other people are learning from it too. The things that you do could inspire and start something else, even outside of you. And if you have questions about this, if you have thoughts about this, if this feels related to anything that you're doing, I would love to hear from you. These are the kind of things that fascinate me. These are the kinds of things that I want to help encourage, promote, and develop. And I think that together we can do some pretty amazing things. So please, if you use email, you can send me an email. Yeah, please get in touch. I'd be happy to talk about any of this stuff, and I'll be here for this last day of the conference as well as a few days after. So if you've got some time before you go back to your country or before you leave the conference, yeah, please get in touch. Thanks very much. All right, any questions? Yes. Yeah. So my role at italki is manager of teacher services. So I manage a small team that provides the support operations and also feedback from teachers to our design and product teams for what what teachers need on the website. You know, my goal is for teachers to be able to focus on teaching their students, and all that other stuff that isn't exactly about focusing on their students is, you know, stuff that I hope that we can take care of for them so they can focus on what they want to do. I do also teach, so I've been an offline teacher for a couple of years, and I've been teaching more online recently. I speak English and Chinese comfortably, but I only teach English online. Yes.
Is italki also interested in eventually bringing their own teaching content, or do they just want to stay a network to connect teachers?
So I can only give my own personal opinions on that. I'm not aware of if like we as a company are developing something further. But my personal opinion as a manager of teacher services is that I would prefer to stay away from telling people what they need to learn or how to learn it. I would prefer to focus on getting qualified, experienced teachers onto the platform so that students and their teachers can figure out what it is that they need to do. Students have so many different reasons for learning, and it would be very difficult, I think, to create material that would definitely be relevant to them. I think that's better left up to the teachers. Yes.
But as a teacher, what do you feel has been the best way, or I don't know how to say it. What are your students like the most? How do they like to study? And maybe this could be an even better question to everyone else. What do you like to see from your teacher, or how do you like to have your class?
I can start with that, and then you can see if there's other teachers in the room. My students are sort of a particular group. I have one student who is from Russia. She's great. She always brings her own things that she wants to learn. So we've been working through the transcript of a TED Talk that she is really interested in. And my other students are mostly from China, mainland, and Taiwan. And they have a variety of interests. Some of them just want to be able to communicate, like, you know, just hang out with people kind of conversation. And some of them want more specifically to read articles or to review the things that they're doing in school. But I think all of them have really liked having sort of a concrete focus for what they're doing. So we usually try to find an article, like especially if there's text, because then they can, if it's a video, they can listen to it, and if there's writing, they can also read through the text, and that gives us an anchor point for the conversations. The lessons can really go anywhere once we start, but because we have that text as an anchor, we can always return to it, and you know, if I have a place to pick up again on the next lesson. Anybody else have thoughts about what your students like to use? If there's other teachers here, yes. Yeah, good question. I think the most successful students that I've seen, they really have an outside interest. They're not just sort of showing up and expecting me to take them through the lesson. They have material that they're already reading, or a book that they already find compelling, I'm thinking of two different examples of one student who has a textbook that she's working through, but that's not the only thing that she's working through. She uses that textbook as a benchmark of trying to get through vocabulary and grammar, and that gives her a sense of progress too, when she can complete the chapters and she feels, okay, like now I've learned this grammar point. You know, now I remember when she announced that she had finished the part of the textbook, that meant that she was moving from like lower to upper intermediate or something like that. You know, it's still intermediate, but it's a milestone for her. So she had found a way where she could track her progress. And I think it's significant that she wasn't only learning from the textbook. She was kind of using it as a way of seeing where she was and being able to check off like progress boxes. But the main thing that we were doing in our lessons was not the textbook at all. We were looking at the transcript of her. It's that one, the transcript of the TED Talk that she was really interested in. And the other one I'm thinking of is kind of similar. It wasn't a textbook, but she had a novel that she was reading, and she was just always reading it. She became very good. Yeah, yes.
No, just to answer your question, one of the things that my students tell me is because obviously Spanish is the second language they mostly learn in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have a good speaking level, but they really struggle understanding, and they see like, I can understand you as a teacher, but outside it feels like. And one of the solutions that I figured out that it's working, helping in a way, is when I refer them to a video and we check and review a transcription, especially something like that is more informal. So when are two people discussing on the street or something that they really learn, like, and they ask me questions like, I don't know, things like sin igual, for example. What does it mean? And I tell them, I don't know, I just use it.
So the oh wait, sorry, is that a comment or is there a question there? Okay. I was like, what should I say? Yeah, thank you. There, yes.
I used to teach ESL to new immigrants and refugees in the Canadian government, and the program with refugees seems really incredible. I mean, obviously when they arrive, the huge problem is language, and job is the other thing. So at least, people who are trained as teachers, I mean, it just seems fantastic. So my question is about professional development for, within that program.
Yes.
For other italki teachers, are there like professional development?
I'm working on it. No, this is a thing that I think is really important in the community now. Actually, when I was first thinking of what to talk about at this conference, the first thing that came to mind was the way that I've, maybe kind of similar to the talk that Richard Simcott gave about the evolution of this language learning community. I feel like I've been able to see some really amazing things just from the standpoint of what the teaching community has done since, not long ago. What is online teaching? Like, that's not even a thing, right? Who does that? Or if you do, then it's like, what? Like, you do what? But now it's becoming much more common. There's a lot more resources for it online, and online teachers are also starting to form their own groups and starting to learn from each other. It's really, I find it quite inspiring. It's the education revolution to me. And one of the things that I hope I can work on, or I hope we can do to support that, is a lot of teachers, even professional teachers that already have experience, a lot of the certification programs out there for offline teaching in classrooms. And I think that there's, even if you have that, it's a good start, but there's a lot that is really different about online teaching, especially if you're on a platform where it's not just local people, it's people from literally all over the world. I think there's a lot of skills that go along with that. I've been contacted by a lot of italki teachers that have suggestions about, like, oh, here's something that worked for me, I'd like to share it with more people, and I'd really like to find some ways of combining that and putting it together in a way that helps new teachers get started or helps current teachers continuing to develop their progress. But these are things I would like to do. If you have ideas about them, I would love to hear from you because I think this is really important stuff. And I know that I just realized that we were almost at 2 o'clock right now, so I'm probably going to have to say goodbye to all of you, but I really hope, I want to collect your cards so that I can collect more language reasons. But yeah, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you about what you're discovering in your own learning or teaching. Thank you very much.